Hello there everybody, how's it going? It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on FlossTube, and I am coming to you on this Saturday, January 28th of the year 2023. I had to think for a second, because we're still there. And I am coming to you today with an update video. My first update for 2023. This is attempt number 12 at getting this video filmed and out to you all. It's just been hectic, and I think that I am far enough out of practice and out of habit with filming updates that I'm stumbling and struggling. So here we are. We're gonna try it now, and hopefully this one works. Before I get into everything though, I just want to say welcome to both my returning viewers as well as anybody who is new here. Thank you all so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me. FlossTube is huge, and so you spending some time with me, y'all just make it all worth it. So on this channel I talk mostly about cross stitch. Today it's going to be all cross stitch. Sometimes I will talk about books and knitting, and because we are in January, those things are relevant because I feel like in January I try to do all of the things, and I have done all of the things, but we have enough to go over with stitching that we're just going to stick to that. So I have one really cool Christmas gift to share with you. I have the projects that I have worked on thus far. I have some plans. I have lots of stuff, just lots of stuff. So let's go ahead and we're just going to jump right in. And we're going to start off talking about a Christmas gift that I received. So my husband and I, a little bit of backstory, as I do. My husband and I are going to get a rower, a rowing machine. It's a big piece of workout equipment. And that's what we kind of decided we were going to do for Christmas. And so we weren't really going to exchange gifts. So I thought that I wasn't going to have anything to open on Christmas Day. And so I had an Advent box that a 12 Days of Christmas box that I got from Stitch and Button that I'll show you here in a little while. And I had him wrap that so that I would have something to unwrap on Christmas Day. And I thought that was going to be it. So we get to the end of Christmas morning. Kiddo has unwrapped all of her stuff and she's flitting from one thing to the other as toddlers do at Christmas time. It was phenomenal. I just have to tell you. So she's playing and we're kind of settling back and hanging out. And he goes, "Why don't you go grab that last gift?" I said, "What are you talking about? There's nothing left under the tree. What are you talking about?" There was a gift stuck behind the tree. It's sitting next to one of our lazy boys, and it was wrapped in like plain craft paper. And the chair that's in that corner is kind of that same color. It's like my shirt. And so it totally blended in. I had no idea it was back there. I wasn't expecting it. I had no idea it was back there. So I go, I grab it, I open it, and immediately the tears start falling. So let me show you. He got my mini pearl framed. So for those of you who have been with me for a long time, perhaps since the beginning, this was my first Heaven and Earth design. It was like my 4th or 5th project ever. I started stitching in March-ish of 2013, and I think I started her in April. And then I finished her in July of 2015. She was a learning piece for me. I learned that I did enjoy full coverage stitching and how to stitch it my style. She was my first foray into Kreinik. There's a little bit of Kreinik. There's a little bit of Kreinik at the crown of her head, and me not knowing any better, I split it. I split the Kreinik number 4 braid to stitch her hair. Very silly. But anyway, I learned better once I got down. The hem of her outer skirt here has a little bit of Kreinik running through it. And I learned once I got down there that you just use the whole thing off the spool. She was my first foray into even weave. So she is stitched on a 25 count Lugana, 1/1 full cross. She was the first time I learned to not cut my fabric until I am either absolutely sure that I have enough or wait until I'm finished. She has about an inch of margin on the bottom here. And I am truly mystified that they were able to get her framed so beautifully, given how big these mats are, knowing how little margin there is on the bottom. And she's in there so beautifully. The mats run right up to the stitching, and it's phenomenal. Our Michaels framer she's really standout. I really like her a lot, and I hope she stays for a long time. So I have all of my finishes kind of strewn about in one of our spare bedrooms upstairs. And while Baby Does Stuff and I were in Michigan, he went up there and he sorted through all of my finishes and he pulled her out. He knew that it was going to be this one that he framed, that she was going to frame for him. And he rifled through all of my finishes and pulled her out, took her over to Michael's, conversed with the framer for a long time. He said like 2 hours. He felt like he was in there. And they came together on all of these decisions. He wanted this top mat to be the linen finish, and I love that. My Stargazer, the top mat is a linen finish, and it just makes me happy. It's just very fitting, isn't it? And then they decided to go with this wood frame in the cherry color to try to pull some of those colors out of the butterflies and out of her wings. And I'm just so geeked. She got finished, I think, on like the 23rd of January, or not January, December. Maybe sooner than that. And because we were home, he convinced his dad to go pick her up from the framer for him, and then snuck her in the house for me to surprise me on Christmas morning. That man, so sweet. So sweet. So she is all finished, and she is going to hang on the opposite wall of Stargazer, next to my stitching spot, so that I can look up at her and marvel and love on her. Oh, she's so pretty. She's so pretty. So that is my mini Pearl. I'll put her there so that y'all can see her throughout the video. So on the subject of fully finishing, I have an unofficial goal this year of having a new FFO to share with you. A new FFO to share with you on each and every one of my update videos. And I hope to film updates roughly every 2 weeks. I have a huge backlog of things to fully finish, and I have plans for a lot of them. And I just need to get it into gear and get it going. So I am on a path to try to fully finish some of this stuff or figure out what the heck I'm going to do with it, because I have a lot. And I would like to have some stuff displayed. I'd like to have something on this wall. That would be cool. Really, all around this office, I'd like to cover it with some of my stitching. So that is the plan this year, is to bring a new FFO to the table. Hopefully, each update. Some of them are going to be smaller finishes, and I hope to learn how to do some soft finishes, but nonetheless, I'm looking forward to it. So, on that subject, in a continuation of that subject, I need to take a second here to shout out and send a huge thank you to Cassie. So in the description box of every one of my videos, I have a Buy Me a Coffee link. It is totally optional. Like, please do not feel obligated to buy me a coffee, but also a huge thank you to anybody who does. I so appreciate your support of the channel. I've mentioned previously that my plan for any coffees that are bought for me, those monies are going towards some professional framing. And I am at a point now, thank you very much, Cassie, to take something over to the framer. So I'm going to do that probably this week. I'm going to take something and hopefully get my Michael's girl to see what we can do. I'm not going to share with y'all what that is. You'll just have to wait and see. And I'm very excited. So, okay. So that is it for the preemptive stuff. Let's get into the stitching. Let's get into the projects that I have worked on. Okay, my last video came in the beginning of December, and I have made the decision that I'm not going to cover everything since that point. We're going to put 2022 to bed, and we're just going to start fresh from January 1st, 2023. So the majority of the things that I worked on in those last few weeks of December were all of my new starts. I had a new start parade where each day I worked on a different one of my 2022 new starts. And you can see all of those in my 2022 recap video, which I guess I'll stick up here if you are interested in checking that out. The other things that I have worked on, so there were a couple of older whips that I worked on also in that time period. My plan is to work on everything this year. I intend to put at least 1,300 stitches into every single one of my projects this year. And so at some point this year, you will see them again. The only two that I can think of are Dumbo by Mandarinx Designs and Snow Castle. And yeah, you'll see them this year. So stay tuned, and we'll catch those up. Because we are 4 weeks into January, because January is almost over, I have so much that I have already worked on, and I just had to find a way to cut it off. So we're just going to cover January today. January 1st, 2023. For months, my plan was to start Supersize Max Color the Grand Library. That is a Heaven and Earth design, and the artist is Amy Stewart. That was the plan forever. I have my yard of fabric. I have most of the threads. I have some of the Paco organizers, but not all 5 of them that I need. But I was getting prepped and getting prepared to have this new start on January 1st. So a couple of things led me to not start that on January 1st. So the biggest thing holding me back was some realizations. I was prepping for the new year, and I was writing down my starting points on all of my full coverage pieces. And it occurred to me that of my 11 Heaven and Earth designs currently on the go, 4 of them don't have page finishes yet. Over a third of my Heaven and Earth design projects don't even have a page done yet. So 2 of those were 2022 new starts, and so those don't really count for me mentally, personally, what have you. But 2 of them are from 2017 and 2020. And they still don't have page finishes. And it's just not sitting right with me. It gives me great pause for starting a Supersize Max Color when I've got so many without even a page finish yet. So that started kind of pulling me back from having this new start. And then the long story short, and I'm not going to go into any details, but our end of 2022 / beginning of 2023 was tumultuous. Just a real quick run through here. Of the 3 people in this house, we had 5 doctor's appointments from December 30th to January 5th. One of those was an ER visit. 2 of them were to an urgent care. Like, it was a lot. We're all okay. It was a lot there at the beginning of the year. And so I couldn't start the Grand Library on the 1st. I couldn't be prepared in time to be able to do that. So I have some other things kitted that I could have started instead for a new year, new start, and I just wasn't feeling any of it. So I just decided to go to one of my whips. My stitching plan for this year includes 6 whip go pieces, 4 full coverage, and Glory of Autumn. And that's 11 projects, which is a lot, and I might have to reevaluate and change how I do things in the coming months. With a plan of 11 projects, I just had to get going. So I decided to go with my biggest goal for the year. And my biggest goal for the year is 7 pages on Personal Sunshine. So a preview here of what this will look like finished. This is artwork by Jeremiah Ketner, and it is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I worked on this in 2 rotations in January here, so let me show you the progress and then we can discuss. So here's where I am up to. All right, so when I started out this year, I was halfway through page 3 up here, and in that first rotation, I finished page 3. It took, I think I finished the page on the 7th, but I had a few no stitching days due to illness. And kiddo illness. So it took I think 5 days to actually get the page done with active stitching. And I got into the sun, and that was really, really exciting. So 4 full coverage projects a month. What has kind of inspired that is the Full Coverage Fanatics by the Numbers challenge. It has 4 tiers: a 5,000 stitch tier, a 2,000 stitch tier, 1,000, and 500. And I have decided that I'm going to try to do them all each month and assign a different project to each tier. My goal for this piece is 7 pages. It works out to about 50,000 stitches. So I gave this one the 5,000 stitch tier, and it's going to be my 5,000 stitches one until that goal is reached, until I get those 7 page finishes. So getting this page finished was 3,700 stitches, give or take. And so I needed another 1,300 to get to 5,000. Now this project turned 7 years old in January, I think the 17th. This is my oldest Heaven and Earth design at this point. And so I wanted to work on it for its birthday. My arm was getting a little tired. I wanted to work on it for its birthday, so I did pull this back out on the 17th, and I think another day, to start page 8 here and to get that going and to reach my goal of 5,000. So that is where I got to with Personal Sunshine. I so love this piece. I love all the purples. I love the sun coming in. My 7 pages will get me to the right side. It will get me to the right corner. It will not finish the sun though. It won't finish the sun. So that's okay. I'm all right with that. And I'm just geeked with starting this off and getting this one, at least this one, on the right foot. If I have to make some amendments to my plans for each month, this one is going to remain my 5,000 stitch because it's my big goal, and I would just really like to get it accomplished. This is on a 25 count cream Lugana from Zweigart, and I'm stitching 1/1 full cross with the called for DMC. I'm using Anchor Black for the black, and the coverage looks better in person than it does there on camera, but that's okay. I had some stitchy friends at retreat tell me to stop saying that, so I'll try. So that is Personal Sunshine. Love this piece. I finished my rotation on Personal Sunshine, my first rotation. I get the page finish, and with the plans to work on it later for its whip birthday. And it was time to pull out something else. Because I am consistently faced with indecision, but I knew I had a big chunk of projects to work on, I put everything in a wheel. So the 11 projects that I had planned to work on this month went into a wheel. Spin the wheel, And the first one it pulls is one of my WIPGO projects. I have 3 WIPGO boards this year. I have all of my WIPs on that WIPGO board with a couple of exceptions. I'm going to show you my WIPGO boards here in a little while, but a lot of things have changed, so I'm going to show you them later. So we'll talk about that in a minute. My first WIPGO project that I worked on in January was this oldie but goodie. So this is a Wise Owl. It is a Dimensions kit, and I started this in 2017. This was one of those projects that I started thinking that I was going to work on it on a Q-snap. It was meant to be my Sunday stitch while we watched football. I worked on it exactly one day in 2017, and then exactly one day in 2018, and it never saw the light of day since then. So we're talking over 4 years since I last worked on this piece, and I had barely done anything at the beginning. So because this is a 2017 WIP, my goal was 5 days or 2,000 stitches. I'm hoping to average about 400 stitches a day, and so 5 days, 2,000 stitches was my goal for this piece, whichever of those was reached first. So I ended up doing the 2,000 stitches in 5 days. I thought that I was going to get it in 4, but my 4th day ended up being an almost scratch day, so c'est la vie. Now this piece, I have 2 Dimensions kits on the go. And this one is significantly easier than the other. This one is like 80% half stitch. It's blends and it's multiple strands, and it's, you know, it's not easy. It's just easier than my other one because it's a lot of half stitch. So 2,000 stitches is actually the converted number. It's closer to probably 3,500 that I actually did, because I did a lot. a lot of half stitch. So except for the leaves here, everything is in half stitch. So the orange and yellow leaves, and then there's a little bit of brown here, just at the very top of the owl. You'll see in my before and afters where I started from, but it was like, I was like over here. I had a good chunk of this tree trunk done. I had a little bit of this in here, and I worked my way all the way across. Now let's talk about the fabric real fast here. This is not the kit fabric. The kit comes with 14 count Aida? Yes, 14 count white Aida. And I really don't like Dimensions kit Aida. It's so starchy and stiff, and they never give you a whole lot of margin. Because I do a lot of stitching on my Millennium frame, I need a little bit of extra margin, particularly on the top and bottom, and I just prefer linen, so I swapped it out for a 28 count antique white linen. And you'll see my other Dimensions kit here in a minute. I did the same thing for that one. So that is where I got to, and my approach here was it was kind of cool. I got to do the typewriter method. I got to try that out for myself. For me personally, I don't enjoy the typewriter method for my true full coverage pieces because I'm not a cross-country stitcher. However, this is half stitch, and so half stitch in cross-country, that's kind of my jam. I really enjoyed that. I liked loading my needle up with these super long strands and just going to town and getting down as far as I could. Because it's trees and branches and whatnot, this piece really kind of lends itself to starting a thread here and working it down in this tree and then this tree and then, you know, that sort of a thing. So I got to use the typewriter method, which was coined and created and explained by Sarah Stitch and Mommy. And my plan was to do the top row of blocks. So the way that this chart, is organized, the top row of blocks is really only 7 stitches tall, but I was just doing the top row of blocks. And so I would take the first color that was missing in the top and work it all the way in, and then fill in that block that way. So typewriter method within the block, and then I would move to the next block. And so that's why you get lots of stuff going on all the way across. This is so much fun to stitch. It is so much fun. Unfortunately, for me, having just said how much fun it is to stitch, this piece is going away for the rest of the year. Like I've said, I want to work on all of my projects this year. And I'm only going to be able to do that if I am stringent and strict with my own rule about reaching my goal and then being done for the year. And for this piece, the goal was 5 days for it being a 2017 WIP or 2,000 stitches, whichever came first. I'm comforted by the fact that, this project sat with very little for 4 years, and now it's got a decent chunk done. Like, it's a recognizable something. I know which way is up, that sort of thing. And I have a good foundation for next year when I work on it again, and maybe attempt to do the next 2 rows of blocks. Who knows? I have a good foundation to work on this again. So, as much fun as it was, I've got other priorities, and we are just very newly into the year. So that is my progress on Wise Owl. My progress on that took me to the 12th. So I finished that rotation on the 12th, which was Baby Dust Stuff's 2nd birthday. Let's just pause and try to accept the fact that Baby Dust Stuff is 2 whole years old. I have a whole lot of feelings, and I'm not going to talk about it now. I don't want to get emotional right now. But yeah, she's 2. So I thought that I was going to finish my rotation on Wise Owl on the 11th, and then I was going to have a new start to celebrate her birthday on the 12th. But because Wise Owl ended up taking the extra day, I wasn't able to do that. So now we're at the 13th, and it was a Friday the 13th. It was the first Friday the 13th of the year, and I was geeked. I really wanted to participate in Dark 13 stitching, but we were over a third of the way through the month, and I had worked on 2 projects amongst my 11. I couldn't. As much as I wanted to, and I had worked out my plan for what I was going to do for Dark 13 stitching this year, I just couldn't make it happen. I couldn't swing it. A lot more goals than time. So I had to, unfortunately, work on something that is not Dark 13 stitching. Now, some folks on Instagram said, oh, you can totally make that Dark 13 stitching. Just pretend that there's bodies buried there. Fair enough. It's pretty remote. So the next project that I spun was Glory of Autumn by Dimensions. And you could even say that my threads for this piece are a bit of a horror show because I've left them on the Dimensions organizers, and it's getting a little wild. So this is my oldest WIP. I'll move my capuchon needle minder there. This is my oldest WIP, and I started this in 2015. This is my last 2015 holdover, and I'm going to finish this year. I have 0 finish goals other than this. This is the only piece, it may be the only project that I finished this year, which I don't love saying out loud, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, the way in which I'm going to accomplish that finish goal is that this is my piece that I broke up into 12 parts, and I'm working on it 1 part a month from now until the end of the year to see the finish. So I'm going to insert here a picture of my breakdown. My plan is that I'm going to stitch the January section, and then I'm going to stitch the February section in February, and then I'll do any back stitch in the previous month's section. And that's just to keep things simple with parked threads and hanging threads and backstitch, where backstitch lines kind of begin and end, etc. It just makes more sense in my head to do the back stitch in this month's section next month. I hope I'm explaining that in a way that makes any sense at all. If it doesn't, it's okay, because once I have any back stitch, then you'll understand. So anyway, my sections for these first few months are going to be quicker because I have done a lot of this half, a lot of this. Probably to about here is all stitched. No back stitch yet, but to about there is all stitched. So enough showing you the cover. Let's take a look at the project. As I said, this one is also on 28 count antique white cashel linen. My January section was really fast. The only thing that slowed me down was that I had to count. So here is where I am up to now. And so I'm going to fold over here so that we can just focus on my January section that I worked on. So I had this bit of sky done, and I had this half stitch of the tree done previously. And so I hope you can see this, but I half stitched my way the single strand color for the sky over here, and then counted up and over, and then started filling in the top of that gorgeous fire colored tree. Beautiful. And so that was my January section. So with the height of this piece, I think my sections are like 12 stitches by the width. So 12 stitches down by the width. And I definitely overstitched for this one because that would have been like here. So I did a little bit of extra just to set me up for February, to get my threads parked in places that that made more sense. And so that's where I'm up to. These dimensions kits, I'm stitching them using the kit floss in all of the counts and half stitch or full cross as the chart says. So I know in Wise Owl I get no more than 5 strands, and it might even be no more than 4 strands on my needle. In this one I get up to 6. So yeah, I enjoy this, and I look forward to working on this every single month and working my way down. It was so successful last year with Bluebeard's Princess that it's gonna be a continuing thing for me each and every year because it just works for me. I don't think I can do this with multiple pieces, but I can for at least one a year. And so this may be how I tackle my oldest whip each year. We'll see. So that is Glory of Autumn. I finished up Glory of Autumn in one day. I spun my wheel and it pulled full coverage. And so my plan with tackling full coverage as it pertains to my wheel was that I was going to work my way down. So 5,000, by the numbers 5,000 first, then by the numbers 2,000, etc., etc. At this point, we weren't quite to the 17th to be able to work on Personal Sunshine for its birthday, so I decided to go with my by the numbers 2,000. My second largest full coverage goal is on April by Anna Dittman, and my goal for this piece is 3 pages this year. So this is going to be my by the numbers 2,000 project for the year. And so I was, similarly to Personal Sunshine, I was halfway through page 3 up here when I started working on it, and so I put in a little over 2,000 stitches. I think it was like 2,100, and got further into page 3. I just have to tell you how much I love the way this looks at a distance, because up close I'm sketched out a lot. Her forehead is a super pale blue and also cream. and they kind of intermingle. And so you can see that here, but when I'm stitching up close, it's a little harsh. And when I'm stitching up close, these petals are virtually invisible. But when you step back, they you can kind of really see the outline of them. It's not super clear, right? But it's a lot clearer than when I'm, up here stitching on it. And I think it's going to look even better once I get further into that flower and once I get the center of it. I think it's going to look really good. So I think this took me 3 days to get my 2,000 stitches, which is pretty good. There's very few colors that I'm working with, so it zooms. And I'm pretty close to a page finish. I think I'm 1,800 stitches away from a page finish. So that's going to have to happen in February. I'll get that page finished, and then I'll get started on page, I think 8. I think this one is 6 pages wide as well. Personal Sunshine is 3 pages high. This one is 4 pages high, or 3.5 pages high. So I will get my first page finish on this one in February, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm really looking forward to getting into this page with all these pretty minty blues and even deeper blues. So that is April by Anna Dittman. So I finish up the rotation on April, and then it's time to go back to Personal Sunshine. I work on Personal Sunshine for a couple of days. Then I spin the wheel again, and I get my next WIPGO project. So my next WIPGO project is another one that I haven't worked on in way too long, and that is Seeking Refuge by the Scarlett House. Started in March of 2020, and I haven't worked on it since. The reason, though, is that I fell in love with this piece when it was previewed for Nashville Needlework Market in 2020. I fell in love with it. The sentiment just rings true for me. And then the pandemic happened, and a lot of people began to associate this piece with their feelings of during the pandemic and during any lockdowns. And so naturally, everybody started it. And I have a hard time. When everybody starts something, I have a hard time working on it, especially when the attached feelings for a piece shift. And for me, I just didn't want this one to be associated with the pandemic for me. So anyway, I hadn't worked on it in a very long time, and it came up for WIPGO. The unfortunate thing is that this is one of those pieces that I could spend so much more time on. And my goal for the year was 3 days or 1,300 stitches, whichever came first. And I did that in a day and a half. So, yeah, I'm a little bummed that this one is done for the year. But I mean, what are you gonna do? So many projects. I mean, at the start of the year, I had 77. So I have to prioritize somewhere. So I'm stitching this on a 40 count Newcastle linen in light mocha. I think this used to be called Mushroom, and it's a Zweigart colorway. I am using almost all of my own colors. It calls for Weeks Dye Works, Classic Colorworks, Gast, and DMC. I am using Gast, Coloring Cotton, and Anchor Black. Here is my progress. So at the start of this rotation, I had 75 to 80% of the roof finished. I had this chimney done, birds, flowers, and all of this over here and this top border were all finished. And this time I knew I wanted to get into the house. I love stitching a brick house. It's one of my favorite things. I love stitching a brick house. And this is an epic brick house. So my method includes parking, and I know that that's not everybody's jam, but it works for me. And I'm super methodical with how I do this, and I love it. I loved every minute that I was working on this. So I finished off the roof, I stitched this chimney, and I have started working my way on the house. House building and stitching is really backwards to what I thought house building was like in real life. We start top down, or at least I do. Anyway, I'm digging it. I love the way that looks, and I hope that the next time that I work on this, I remember how I was doing this. Since I can't finish the house this year as much as I want to, who knows, maybe I accomplished all of my goals in June on all 77 projects, and then I can work on whatever I want for the last half of the year. It's highly unlikely, but you never know. So that is my progress on Seeking Refuge. Okay, so my rotation on Seeking Refuge actually kind of bled into 24 Hours of Cross Stitch Marathon weekend. And my goal for Marathon weekend was to knock out as many goals as I could, because I was feeling very much behind. I had so many projects on my plate for the month, and here we were. This was last weekend, so in the latter third of the month. So while I was working on Seeking Refuge, I posted to my Instagram stories, and I posted a poll, and I asked y'all to vote and help choose for me the order in which I worked on things during Marathon weekend. And I put up very generic things. I said whip go 1, whip go 2, full coverage 1, full coverage 2. And I think of the votes that I got, like nearly 60% of y'all said whip go, one of the whip goes. I can't remember which one. But it doesn't matter, because I think you said whip go 1 actually. Anyway, what you all ended up picking was Spring Dragon by Ingleside Imaginarium. And I was so geeked that this got called for whip go this month, because Brittany's birthday is in January, and Brittany is the designer of Ingleside Imaginarium. So preview here of what this will look like finished, and here is where I'm up to. And here is another piece where, unfortunately, I am done for the year, because this was a 2020 start, and she needed 3 days or 1,300 stitches, whichever came first. And I got 1,300 stitches in about a day and a little bit more. I love this. I love this so much. This fabric is a 32 count Belfast linen in Cauldron Bubble by Coloring Cotton. It was in a Halloween mystery box from a long time ago. This was my final start for Stitch Mania 2020. And I have a lot of memories with Mania 2020, because I found out I was pregnant during Mania. And by the time we got to this piece, I was starting to feel that first trimester. And so my start on this piece was super sad, and I gave it a good chunk of progress last year. And so now she looks like something, and I just, I love it. I really, really enjoy this piece. The colors flow so nicely. Brittany's charting is impeccable. Yeah, this is fun. Fun stitching. And Pattern Keeper compatible, kind of, sort of. There's some finagling that you have to do, but it works. It works. So 1,300 stitches happened in about a day and a half, like I said, and so this one is done for the year. The project that came in second in that poll that I mentioned during Marathon weekend was full coverage. I think I said full coverage 1,000, full coverage 500. So full coverage 1,000 came in next. I had, so I'll talk about the project and then I'll talk about my grand plans. So this is Quick Stitch Day and Night. This is artwork by Nadia Strelkina. Preview here of what it will look like finished. And it is a Heaven and Earth Designs. And this is my 2020 full coverage start that still doesn't have a page finish. And so that's why I picked it for my full coverage 1000. My full coverage 1000 is going to be my variable one each month if I continue in this trying to do all the by the numbers. So I'm going to show you the progress that I've made. And if you saw my post on Instagram, you may notice that nothing has changed. So I had thought to work on this on my Q-Snap, and at the beginning of the year I had 1800 stitches left to the page finish, and so I was going to do 200 stitches a day to see that goal, that page finish by the end of the month. Does it mean that I am far exceeding the by the numbers 1000? Yep. But that's okay. My goal for the piece for the year is 3900 stitches, and so 1800 would get me well on my way. So that was the plan. So on Monday this week, 6 days ago I think, I attempted to film this update video, and this project has been sitting in here since. I haven't worked on it since Monday morning. I was starting to feel a little bit of maybe some stitchy burnout at the end of marathon weekend. I had done a lot in a very short period of time, and so I was pretty tired. I was pretty tuckered out, and then this project kind of sat. I was feeling behind on my next project, and so I couldn't spare the extra time to work on this. So I'm not going to get the page finish this month. It's not going to happen in amongst everything else, but that's okay. That is okay. And this is going to feature in plans here very shortly. I've done about 500 stitches, so about 1300 to go, give or take. And I love how this piece is turning out. It's really gorgeous. But not going to get the page finish this month. So there's that. As I said, the plan was to work on Quick Stitch Day and Night for 200 stitches a day, in addition to another primary focus project. So I had Wise Owl, Seeking Refuge, and Spring Dragon, my Whipco pieces that were done. And so 3 still to go. And so I spun the wheel again, and this time it pulled Queen Mermaid. So this is now my oldest Mirabilia. Started during Mania 2016, and I was really looking forward to getting to work on her this month because I hadn't worked on her in a while, not since Mania 2020. And so because this is a 2016 whip, she is featured on my Whipco boards twice. The first rotation is 4 days or 1600 stitches, whichever comes first. And the second is 3 days or 1300 stitches, whichever comes first. And so my hope was to get to that 1600 stitches. Unfortunately, stitching progress this week has been slow, and I think it's some burnout from marathon. But anyway, Queen Mermaid is not my focus Mira for the year, even though she is my oldest. But because she's a 2016 start, she's going to get at least some decent progress. I love the fabric I put her on. This is a 32 count Belfast from Under the Sea Fabrics in As You Wish. And yes, that is a Princess Bride reference. And when I started her, this was back when I started Miras in the Middle. And so I have worked my way down. And this rotation, I put in a good majority of this top half of her big old tail fin. This huge tail fin. Unfortunately, the beginning of my rotation began with some frogging. I think my entire first day stitching was just frogging. And because I had confused the symbols, the forward slash and the backward slash. So I had some old stitches to rip out and replace with the with the correct color. So this got 4 days and 1,300 positive stitches on it. So not really very close to my stitch count goal, but I reached the number of days on it, and so that had to be enough. And 1,300 stitches is still pretty decent progress, so I will take it. I won't complain. It went pretty easy because that's some pretty bulk color stitching, and this fabric is lovely. It's lovely to stitch on. So I am placing an order today for the Petite Treasure braids so that I can, when I work on this again, whenever it comes up again in WhipGo, I can spend some good time on it. So there is that. So this one we will see again later this year, which is a relief because I feel like a lot of what I have shown you we're just not going to see again. Getting close here, getting almost to the end of the whips. So my next project is one that we're not going to see again, but for a very different reason. So my next whale spin was for Nantucket Rose. Another WhipGo piece, and this is a struggle bus piece. I should have known that the start of my year was going to be a struggle when I did the WhipGo calls on December 25th on Christmas Day, because I had 2 struggle bus pieces, really 3 if you count Wise Owl, struggle bus pieces come up in this first month of the year. I should have known. But anyway, so because I had such great success with Wise Owl, when I put this on the frame, I was super optimistic that I was going to rekindle my love for this piece and hopefully be motivated to work on it more, and hopefully come along with those feelings of, I don't want to put this away for the rest of the year, or I want to work on this again. And unfortunately, the exact opposite happened. It was a hard-fought 200 stitches on the day that I worked on this. I think I did just a little over 200 stitches, and I just could not anymore. I mean, I think I was mid-stitch, and I just couldn't anymore. I love seeing everybody's progress on this piece. I know that so many of you love this project. This design is from 1992, and it has stood the test of time. It is a well-loved design, and it is beautiful. And I just can't stitch it. It's just not for me to stitch. So I have my first UFO of the year. So this is a 32 count Belfast linen in flax from Zweigart, which is one of my favorite fabrics. I just love the feel of it. I can't tell you why it is that I don't want to stitch this, but I just don't want to stitch it. I just don't. And life is too short and stitching time is too precious to spend it on things that aren't bringing you joy. And this one, I never want to work on. I haven't worked on it in, was it 2018? It might have been 2018 the last time I worked on it. And it didn't bother me. Like, that didn't affect me at all. It might have been since then, now that I think about it. But it doesn't matter because I don't want to work on it. And so I'm not going to anymore. I'm done. I'm done. And I will satisfy myself watching everybody else stitch it and love it. And I love everybody's conversions that they're doing. And I just love seeing everybody who's stitching it just straight up as exactly as charted. Good for y'all. I'm so thrilled to get to watch and not have to do it myself. I had a few people message me and let me know that they were willing to adopt the whip, but I have already repurposed the fabric. I've already found something that I'm going to use the rest of this fabric for, and I highlighted directly on my original chart because I started this in 2016 when I did not know better. So I am sorry, but I've got nothing to adopt out. So anyway, that's my first UFO of the year, and I would say that I have mixed feelings about it, but that's not really true. I am content. I'm pretty satisfied with making this decision. It's part of the reason that I wanted to work on absolutely everything this year, because I wanted to be able to have an informed decision on whether I was going to continue with any of these or not. I have some that are on that line, and so that's kind of the benefit of making sure that I spend some time with everything this year, because I can really assess. I have a lot of whips, and I have a ton of things that I want to start, and yeah, but so I have to be okay with, and I'm okay with the UFO. Okay, so now we get to my last WhipGo piece of January, and it's another struggle bus piece. It is my nemesis. I should say it was my nemesis, because I feel very differently about it here today than I did perhaps 4 days ago. So my next piece in question is The Fantasy Sal by Lakeside Needlecraft. The artist, the actual designer is Durene Jones, but Lakeside Needlecraft organized the stitch along in 2016 into 2017. And before I show you my progress, I just want you to know that I'm contemplating a focus on a finish of Fantasy Sal in February. Challenge to myself, because I think I could do it. Here is where I am up to now. This is on a 32 count Belfast linen in Heroic by Picture This Plus. I started it with the stitch along, and I worked on it really hard, and I went gangbusters, and I got all but the 7th block completed on time. The 7th block I completed about this time last year, and stalled for years. It's a full pattern. It's busy. And I have a hard time with stitch alongs that have a lot of extra stitching, and this one has a lot of extra stitching. There is just so much going on in each of these blocks and around each of the blocks. I feel like the blocks themselves weren't even half the battle with this project, and I think that I reached a point of done, and I wasn't done yet. So I pulled this project out with no assumptions about what the rotation was going to bring. The plan was, as I said, for 2016 whips, 4 days or 1,600 stitches, whichever came first. And I fully anticipated that this was going to be one of those projects that I stitched on a little bit each of those 4 days and called that good enough. And I found on the first day that I didn't want to stop stitching. I didn't want to go to bed. I wanted to just keep going. And I found the same to be true yesterday. And I found the same to be true this morning. So clearly something has changed for me. And now I am contemplating trying to finish this in February. We're going to see how the rest of this rotation goes. I am giving this to... I'm going to give this through today and I think tomorrow. And we'll see what I get done. And then I might, as I mentioned on Instagram the other night, I might attempt a focus on a finish of Fantasy Sal for February. Just to play along with the alliteration. And to maybe get this done next month. Finished, all the way. For real. That would be wild. I have some things that I have to address before I can actually say that is a possibility. The last little medallion here. So you see these guys, like the flower here, the dragonfly, snowflake, butterfly. So there's one here, one down here that is a leaf, and then one down here that is a repeat of the snowflake, and they're meant to go seasonally. So we have winter, spring, summer, fall, winter again at the end of the year. And I made the decision a long time ago that I was not going to repeat the snowflake again. I didn't, because there's some good variability with these pieces, I wasn't in the mood for a repeat. And so years ago, I said that I was going to, perhaps, if ever I had a baby, I was going to put said baby's details in that last block, and frame this up for Kiddo's room. Now Kiddo is here, and I have stitched so many things for her that I don't know if I really need to put her details in this one. I don't know. So I am searching out a quote, something relating to fantasy to put into that last little block. It's not a very big space, so I'm gonna have to get creative with how to handle that, how to tackle that. But I am so pleased that my feelings about this have shifted, and hopefully I can just get her finished, get it done. Looking forward to giving it a try. So that is my fantasy cell. Now there won't be any before and afters with that one because I am mid-rotation, so we'll just do before and afters in my next video. Since that's what I'm currently working on, let's talk about some plans. So my immediate plans are today and tomorrow I'm working on Fantasy Sal. On Monday I'm going to work on Quick Stitch Day and Night. In order to accomplish by the numbers 1000, I need another 500 stitches or so. So that's going to be my goal for Monday. For Tuesday, my goal is to work on by the numbers 500. And for me, this year, my goal for that is Quick Stitch Once Upon a Fairy Tale 2 by Amy Stewart, Heaven and Earth Design. And that's going to be my by the numbers 500 every month for this year, and that will see the page finish by the end of the year, which is my goal. I am really looking forward to working on that again, but because it is so big and the margins on the sides are so tight, it's not one of my easier projects to work on, and so little bits and pieces sprinkled throughout the year will see the page finish by the end of the year. And I think I can accomplish 500 stitches in a day on that piece. I've done it a couple of times now, so we'll see. If I can't, that's okay. Then Wednesday is the start of February. We are into February, and February is a lot of things. I've seen a lot of folks talk about Fancy Lady February. I like it. I have seen lots of folks talk about Full Coverage February. That is headed up by Colette the Highway Stitcher and Sarah Stitch and Mommy. I really like that. And then I'm talking about Focus on a Finish of Fantasy Sal for February. I'm going to continue to say that as fast as I possibly can because it's a long title. On top of all of that, it is the shortest month of the year. I have 6 WIPCO projects. I have 4 full coverage pieces. I have Glory of Autumn. I'd like to do some Dark 13 stitch. There's so much happening. So I can't say for certain what February is going to look like for me. I have had some ideas. About doing full coverage weekends in order to be able to play along with Full Coverage February. I have thought about doing Personal Sunshine as my block a day piece in February, so that would get me 2,800 stitches just in a block a day. I have so many different ideas for what February might look like, and I haven't settled on a single one of them. So instead of sharing with you what I think I'm going to do in February, and so I'm just going to show you my WIPCO pieces for February. At Stitch New Jersey this year, Terry Lee from Terry Lee Crafts was there, and I had a chance to talk with her and to chat with her. And I said in one of her videos from several years ago, she talked about a basket that she had next to her stitchy spot. And in that basket were all of the pieces that she was working on or willing to work on that month for various and sundry things. And I have started doing that. So I have, each month I go through and I take out all of that month's WIPs that I have worked on, and I replenish the basket with the things that I am planning to work on in the coming month. And so I just kind of wanted to share that with you. It's a little basket. It doesn't fit everything. And it sits right next to my stitchy spot so that I can sort of be inspired to work on these things. So these are the projects from my WIP Go boards for February. The first is Fantasy Sal by Lakeside Needlecraft and Durene Jones. So WIP Go just really wants me to get that piece done. And so that's kind of what gave me the idea that I might try to focus on the finish in February. I found that to be hilarious. Our numbers for February, by the way, are 7 and 11, and it's very interesting that January was 6 and 10, and then we just go up by 1 for each of those. And so we'll see if it's 8 and 12 next month. I did the screen recording for doing the draws, but I did it with no sound, and I was just, I was like, well, that's weird. But anyway, so as I said, I have 3 WIP Go boards. So Fantasy Sal, because the first time my 2016 WIPs are called, it's a 4-day rotation. The second time they're called is a 3-day rotation. So at the bare minimum, I'm going to work on it for 3 days or 1,300 stitches in February. So my next piece lives in this project bag. This is a Stitch and Button project bag. And this is a very appropriate piece to work on in February. And this is Anniversaries of the Heart. So I have just the first one here. This is Snow Garden. I started this piece in 2020, right around when Thor had his first cancer diagnosis, and just before his first surgery. And so that's why we have the Bully needle minder here. And I mean, just how perfect. Anniversaries of the Heart for February. I think that my plan, I think I'm going to work on the February block, or the second block, Valentine Rose. It's just fitting. So as I said, I started this in 2020, and I hadn't worked on it since because Thor was sick and needed surgery, and stitching took a back seat. So let me see if I can find my start here. This is a 40 count Newcastle linen in Almond by Silk Weaver. And I am squeezing it onto this fat quarter. It's going to have to be a squeeze to get all 15 blocks on this one little piece of fabric. But I think I can do it. I think everything's going to fit. And I am using all of the called for colors for each of these blocks. Believe it or not, I think there are 3 different off-whites or creams in that on Snow Garden. I believe that there's 3 different colors there that I have stitched so far. So I am far enough along on Snow Garden that I could just jump over here and get started on Valentine Rose. And so I think I may do that. I might even try to work on this on Valentine's. One thought that I did have is that I'm actually kind of glad that I haven't worked on this very consistently, because the January block, I have intentions of following in Cheryl of Twinkle Stitches. She's working on this piece too, and she's attributing each block to an important woman in her life. And the January block, I have an aunt whose birthday is in January, and now Baby Does Stuff whose birthday is in January. And if I had stuck with this as I had intended to in 2020, then I might not have had space for Baby Does stuff in here before she ever existed. And so I don't know if that was some forethought or some intervention of a more divine nature. I don't know. But regardless, I will be able to get Baby Does Stuff's initials in here if that's how I decide to attribute these blocks. So anyway, so that is another Whipco piece for February. And I think Valentine's Day is going to be, that's going to be when I work on this. And this block is going to be for my grandma because her birthday was in February. So that's that one. Very exciting. Okay, up next is a piece. I should say that while Anniversaries of the Heart is a 2020 piece, it's going to get 4 days. No matter how many stitches I put into it, it's going to get 4 days. And the reason for that is that I worked on it one day in the 3 years since I started it. So that one is guaranteed to get 4 days because I'd like to bring everything up to at least 5 days. Okay, this is another piece like that. This is a project bag by the Painted Leaf Company, and this is a Teresa Kogut fabric. And this was my New Year's Eve new start. So if you watched my 2022 recap video, you would have seen this there. But this is A Year at Hawk Run Hollow by Carriage House Samplings. And again, I think I'm going to work on the February block in February. Because for New Year's Eve 12 by 12, I started all of the blocks. I definitely did not finish all of the borders on all of the blocks, but I started all of them, including one that only got a single half stitch in the top corner. But anyway, so I think I may start with the February block. I have no grand plans for this piece for this year. Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow is a bigger focus than this one. And this is another piece that is going to get a guaranteed 4 days, regardless if I get 4 stitches total sprinkled over those 4 days, so be it. But this one has to get 4 days because it only has one so far since I started it on New Year's Eve. Okay, here's a piece from 2016. So it will have 2 rotations. And this first one is a 4-day rotation. And this is August by the Cricket Collection. Now this will be 4 days or 1,600 stitches, whichever comes first. If I do 3,000 stitches on Anniversaries of the Heart in the first 2 days, I'm still going to give it 2 more days. But this one, if I get 1,600 stitches in 3 days, then I can be done. And all of that is relevant to me and not necessarily to you, but I feel like over-explaining all the time. So I'm really looking forward to working on this. This is my oldest of my Cricket Collection monthlies. I definitely don't have, I don't have these all done. But this is my oldest currently of the 3 that I currently have going. This is on a 32 count Belfast linen. Oh, good on me for saving the tag. This is Pearl Gray by Zweigart. And I have a very sad start on this one. Very, very sad. That ewe in 7 years isn't done yet. Too many projects. Too many projects. This is why I'm okay with things going south with Nantucket Rose. So this is using all of the called for threads. The letters are done in a silken colors. And yeah, goal number 1 is to finish up that U. Yikes. Yeah, this I'm looking forward to it though. I'm really looking forward to getting back into this series and back into these pieces. Because I have another one that will come up later in the year. 2 more. But another one that I haven't worked on in a long time. Okay, here is a piece with a very short rotation plan for it. And it lives in this project bag by Vintage Owl Lady. And I love this fabric. And in here is my Moonlight sampler, which I haven't worked on since 2021. So I started this for Thor's birthday in 2021, and love, 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 love. Big love for this piece. Moonlight Sampler by the Blue Flower, and I am stitching it on a color and cotton, and I'm so glad I left the tag on. This is Prairie Dust, 40 count Newcastle linen, in a lot of my own colors, but some as charted. That is my starting point. Oh, I love this piece. I cannot wait to get into this. This was one of my favorite starts from 2021. I loved everything that I started in 2021. And fun fact, of my 2021 starts, I don't know that I worked on a single one last year. I don't think I worked on a single one last year. So I'm really looking forward to getting to them this year. Anyway, so there's that. And then my final WIPCO piece for February lives in this project bag. This is a Momily bag by Emily C. And in here is another out of print Mirabilia. So I will get to do some Fancy Lady February with Fairy Moon. So some more alliteration for y'all, which I think is fun. Ooh, fun. So yeah, so this is Fairy Moon. I am stitching this on a gorgeous fabric. I started this with Belinda Aussie Stitcher for World Cross Stitch Day in 2018, and very sadly haven't worked on it since. This is on a 28 count cashel linen in cashel. I don't know if I said that right. In Shadow, by Picture This Plus, and I am mirroring this design. So everything is flip-flopped. And the reason for that is a story that I have told a couple of times, but I'll tell it here because it's been a long time since I worked on this. Belinda, Aussie Stitcher, had a dream once that involved coming over to my house and seeing my Stargazer and Fairy Moon hanging on the wall together. Either they were behind my head in my filming spot in my old house or something to that effect. Stargazer faces in this same direction, and so I have decided to mirror this one so that we have Stargazer and Fairy Moon, and they will be looking in the same towards the same spot. My Stargazer is on a brown neutral, and this is not. This is not that. And Fairy Moon is significantly bigger, and I'm stitching it on a 28 count, so they are not sisters in any stretch, but they will be facing in the same, towards the same thing. So that's why things are mirrored here. And I cannot wait to get back into this. This of my pieces, it's been the longest since I've worked on this, and I haven't worked on it since August of 2018. So I am really looking forward to getting into this. And yeah, this is a very dark fabric. It's like it just eats the light, but it's beautiful. I love that you're getting to see some of the purple. I get some of the purple tones while I'm stitching. I cannot wait to get back into this. This is going to be a lot of fun. The moon is all finished except for beads. So we're going to go from this to this with beads. It's going to be fun. And I'm so excited. So excited to get going on her. For the first time in a lot of years, 4.5 years. In the creation of my WIPCO boards, let's talk about this, because when I first proposed the idea of 3 WIPCO boards, my plan, my hope, my dreams was to get my number of WIPs down to 72, because that would spread very evenly into 3 WIPCO boards. And as you know, I was not successful. I came into the year with 77 WIPs. So here's what I did in the creation of my whipco boards. I took all of my full coverage out. And by full coverage, I mean my 11 HAEDs and my 1 Carolyn Manning design. I'm working on those in a different way, and maybe I'll talk about that at some other time. I'm working on them differently, but it's going along with by the numbers with full coverage fanatics. So there's that. Then, so that brought me down to 65. Then I took out my Glory of Autumn because that is a piece that I am working on every month regardless, and so it didn't need to be in my whipco board. And then I took my 2016 whips, so my oldest category of whips, for which I have 8. I have 8 remaining 2016 projects, and my overall goal for 2016 whips is 7 days. Instead of having them on my whipco boards once for a 7-day rotation, I decided to break it up, and as I have talked about several times, they are on there twice, once for a 4-day rotation and a second time for a 3-day rotation. And that brought me to the magical 72. Amazing that it was able to work out like that I had exactly the right number of 2016 whips once I took out full coverage and Glory of Autumn. Very cool. So that is how we get to the 3 whipco boards. So I'm going to insert them here so that you can see what this currently looks like. So Nantucket Rose is still on my whipco boards twice, and I have marked those complete, both for my January block as well as block number 5 on one of my boards. It is complete, but it hasn't been called yet, so it's not blacked out, but it is dark grayed out. And I have talked about this in whipco how-to videos for how to handle UFO'd projects. And I have said in the past that it's kind of a your board, your rules kind of thing. You can choose to replace it. You can just not complete that block, or you can do what I did, and that is to say that that project is done. I mean, it's done. I'm no longer working on it, so the project is done. On top of that, I have nothing to replace it with because all of my whips are on these boards. So that's what I have done, and so that's where you're going to see those different markings, because that whip is done for me. Okay. February is the first month that Full Coverage Fanatics is having bingo. They're going to have 4 this year from what I remember. And so you have the option of doing a counted version where it's 1,000 stitches for the prompt, or 2,000 stitches if you don't have something to beat the prompt, then you can work on whatever, but for twice as many stitches. Or you can do just a focus on it for a day kind of a thing, without counting stitches, etc. I don't know if I'm going to do bingo, but I have the kind of idea percolating in my head that if I do full coverage February, that I'd like to get page finishes. And so how many page finishes can I get to? Personal Sunshine, April, Quick Stitch Day and Night, and Alice in a Dolly Dream. My 2017 full coverage piece that is not yet at a page finish. This is a big ask. If we're talking 5,000 stitches on Personal Sunshine, it actually will work out to 5,600 stitches to get the page finish. 2,000 on April, about 1,000 on Quick Stitch Day and Night if I get my 1,000 this month, 500 on Once Upon a Fairy Tale, and then another 3,000 on this one. It's a big ask, especially for a month when I'm not quite sure how I'm going to work on everything. So we're gonna see. I'm just kind of showing you all of the options, and I'd like to get the page finish. It's in the forefront of my mind to get the page finish on this one. I see Sammy J working on hers, and hers is the mini, but she is zooming. She's on the far right side, and I want mine too. I want to get to swans reflecting elephants. I want to get out of page 1. So yeah. So that is that. Just a real quick recap. My goal for this piece for this year is 7,800 stitches, which will be the rest of this page and then about half of page 2. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what I get to. I need to spend some time over the next few days and figure out what my plan is for February. And it's going to depend a lot on how Fantasy Sal goes for the next couple of days. So those are the projects on my radar for February. We'll see how I get to them all. That is it for the plans, I think. I may have a new start because I haven't had a new start yet this year. The thing is with this 11 projects a month, I don't have space. I don't have time for new starts. And I don't want this to be a no new starts kind of year. But I seem to be working my way into that kind of corner a little bit. So there's going to be some reevaluating coming up here for real. So yeah, that's everything. That is all of the stitching that I have to share with you today. Thank you all so very much, especially if you stuck through here to the end. I know that this is a long video. I had a lot to catch you up on, and I tend to over-explain. So yeah, that's where we are. But just again, thanks for watching. My hope is to film every 2 weeks. So my next video will come probably the weekend before Valentine's Day, and we'll take it from there. So I'm gonna head off here. I'm gonna start editing this monstrosity and I am going to get back to stitching on Fantasy Sal and getting prepped to play a board game tonight. Husband and I are gonna play a game. So happy stitching, everybody. As always, be kind. I will see you in the next one.